Because once we have that, then the people who actually want to advertise on video will advertise on video. Can we make it as simple as buying a TV spot? Let's try and make it easier for the people who have the money they want to spend.
That's sometimes dangerous. If you have your content that's syndicated out and you're selling advertising against it, you don't always know where that content ends up, and it may not be appropriate for that advertiser. So it's kind of it's a scary situation sometimes that it's hard to sell that because you really don't know where your content's going to end up. Maybe in your case, being professional content, you do.
Right. I mean, we would cherry pick where we're going. Obviously, we don't like the ad networks just because of that. I mean, it is very scary. Again, we don't want to be the equivalent of the Tampax ad in front of some inappropriate content.
Right.
But again, we do need to leverage online video because our best sell for our product is our trailer, hands down. It's not a 30-second spot. It's not a print ad in a newspaper. It's not a radio spot. It is our trailer. And online video has finally gotten to a point where it is a very viable trailering product for us. But we need to be able to track it. And so, I'm putting it out there to the industry. You need to help advertisers like us.
Well, and for us on our side, there's 2 points of consumption of the video. It's either through the Video Clicks player or our third-party component plugin, which is plugged into other players, like our plugins plugged into ESPN. So wherever our technology resides, we are able to do that tracking that you're looking for. In the video views, obviously, engagement metrics that aren't normal to video because it's not just about views, it's the rollovers, what's getting rolled over, how many times, where in the video, what's getting clicked on, how many times are those clicks happening, the clicks on the ad units, and our CTRs range from 5 to 50% depending on the object. And all that information can be tracked wherever our technology is. But certainly it's an issue. The technology does need to be there. But if our player is shared or syndicated out, we can deliver those metrics back on a global basis too as well.
What I've seen in the market and what's been going on for many years is that people use third-party ad servers and they're just decoupling content serving and ad serving. Obviously, DoubleClick has a good product. Freewheel is focusing on just being able to measure and deliver advertising across multiple players, which is pretty cool. But I think something that was mentioned earlier, there needs to be standardization so people can actually start serving more types of advertising, and you can actually increase the overall inventory that can be served across the web.
So if I'm a small company, then I'm not a big... Sorry?
The common refrain we hear, particularly on the buy side, is actually not that they don't have enough data, is that they have way too much data. And they're data rich and knowledge poor because they get data from the 3 publishing systems that they use, the 4 ad servers, the 6 ad networks, the 3 analytics, web analytics package, throw in a good widget provider, and a few other pieces in there. And they can't make up or down of it, and none of it agrees, and none of it's consistent. And everyone has a little bit of a conflict of interest about self-reporting their own numbers to basically show that they deliver what they said they're going to deliver on and how they performed. And I can tell you from the buy side, there's a tremendous amount of skepticism about self-reported data. And it's not because these guys are conspiracy theories, it's that they've been burned many times. And they're ready to scratch and scratch and scratch. And believe it or not, they keep scratching and they find a lot of anomalies in that data set. So and again, major ad-supported media, there have been independent third-party measurement companies whose job it is to keep score who don't have a vested interest in the outcome. And so it's a tremendous amount of work, and there's a tremendous amount of complexity for companies like ours to be able to span all these different technologies and provide a single version of what actually happened. And guess what? For the smaller ones, for the less popular properties, it's really controversial because their transparency may not be in their best interest this quarter. But with the big boys, the guys with the real serious ad sales who are really ready to stand behind their content, they welcome it. So my advice to those of you in the audience is if you find publishers who are particularly reticent to share numbers, that might be a red flag.
So if I'm not a major studio and I have video content I want to monetize, can I monetize it yet online, or do I need to be a big company doing a deal with a big company like a Yahoo or a Facebook or MySpace? Can I monetize it if I've just got some video and I want to put it out on other sites?
Well, it depends on what you consider a big company. I mean, Demand Media has a great business, and they're creating original content, and they're not one of the big broadcast or studios out there. They've figured out the business. They figured out how to actually build content people want to watch, and they've achieved scale. But that's the key, right? Across our customer base, we have customers who are smaller and don't have that scale and come to us and like, hey, we'd like to plug into this ad network. And we're like, all right, but just set expectations. You're probably not going to make that much money because you don't have scale. But there are people making money out there.
And if you look at it, I mean, if you see, I talk to companies, they're very excited. They've got 1 million views a month. But if you say, just tossing out a number, even you put a $5 CPM against that, and that's $5,000 of revenue, correct me if I'm wrong, and then you take out ad sales fees and revenue shares, the amount that goes back to the content owner, it's not enormously compelling. Mm-hmm. If it's, a single person making videos in their garage, it can be fantastic. But in terms of sort of an independent video producer, it's not a lot of money yet.
So that actually segues well into my next question, which was going to be, what happened to ad networks? And since I've done several panels now at different digital Hollywoods where I've moderated advertising sessions, and about 1.5 years ago, everybody talked about ad networks were going to be the way that everyone was going to be able to finally aggregate all those views of similar content across sites, and everyone was going to make a ton of money. And now suddenly I'm not hearing about ad networks, or all I'm hearing is they don't work. I'm curious to get your opinions. I know, Kevin, your company doesn't necessarily do ad networks, but I'm very curious whether you think, is this model dead? What's wrong with it?
Yeah, I think if you have good content and premium content, I'm not sure the ad network is the solution. I read an interesting article a while back that said, if you use an ad network, you're an idiot. And here's the math to prove it. And it was a really interesting article, not that I agree 100% with it, but it had to do with more premium content. And it had to do with, if you've got an ad sales team that on premium content that you're getting good CPMs, $40, $50 for that content, you'd be silly to supplement it with an ad network for your unused inventory. That when you're getting $2, $3, even $5, which is high, all you're doing is lowering the value of your own, valuable ad sales team. You're competing against them. There's a place for it. I think, certainly, I think it's setting your expectation. As you said, if it's $5,000 on kind of those medium level where you're getting 1 million hits a month, you're making some money. But it was just an interesting article and talked about math. And I think what it really comes down to, if you have good content that people want to watch, you can sell against that. If you don't, you can use an ad network, but you're not going to drive any significant revenue.
So I think ad networks have several players involved, right? You have the content owners who want to maximize the revenue, and then you have the advertisers who want to maximize value and ROI. From an advertiser perspective, the ad network is awesome. Like they can get some pretty valuable impressions on good sites. And I think what ad networks do is that they changed the paradigm of pricing from being scarcity-based, which is the way that TV advertising is bought and sold today, to actually making it value-based. From a content owner's perspective, I think there are some vertical ad networks that actually give you decent CPMs, and you should focus on those. I know Adify has a number of verticals that have $20, $30 CPMs within those verticals. And I think that's pretty cool. I think from an ad network as a business perspective, you need to achieve tremendous scale. It's not about a couple hundred sites. It's not about a couple of thousand sites. I mean, Google had millions and millions of sites, but after they were done with all the rev shares and the cost of everything, it was a single-digit margin business. And that was a very efficient engine that was serving out the video.